Good morning. This is a participative, if I can say that word, a participative session. So, good morning, Ian. Just turn your camera on. Sarah, if you can turn yours on when you get there, and Tajinder and Daniel as well, that would be great. So, the way the session is going to work, I'll just let Praddy in as well. The way the session is going to work is I'm going to share with you this morning for about 15-20 minutes how the mastermind works, why I'm passionate about masterminding. I'm then going to send you off into the breakout rooms to speak to the lovely Chris, Keith, the two Michaels, and James about their experience within the mastermind. And you can then ask them any questions about what they get out of it, what value they get out of it, and any questions that you might have around joining the mastermind. And then after you've had about 20 minutes in those breakout rooms, I'm then going to bring you back and go through some more information about what you actually get out of the mastermind. And then at the end, there will be an opportunity for you to tell me what you want to do. One of three things, basically: to join the mastermind, to consciously do nothing and go away and stay on your own, or alternatively set up your own mastermind group, which I will help you do if that is something you want to do. If you have any questions as I go through, please feel free to raise your hand or pop them in the chat box and I will gladly answer them. So in order to get started, let me share the screen like that, and I'll just keep a bit of an eye on to make sure that nobody else is coming in, and then we'll just let Nicola in as well. So can everybody see the screen? Wave if you can see the screen. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Mark. And let in Chris. So as I said, welcome to the Meet the Members session. I have been masterminding. We've had a mastermind group since 2012. So let me just, that's not working. Resume the slideshow and do that. So this is a picture of group one, which Michael is in and Chris is in, listening to Malcolm Smith. And Malcolm Smith was talking about negotiations. And in my opinion, the speakers that we have along to the groups are one of the main benefits of the mastermind session. So we bring in people from outside of the community, outside of the accountants community, to share their outside knowledge, if you like, and then we take that knowledge and distill it into actions that we can take within our accountancy practices. Now, the whole thing about masterminding, and for me, the whole thing about any training that we do, is to make sure that you take action off the back of it. Let me just let that person in as well. And the slideshow is not working for whatever reason. Oh, there we go. So the value of any event, including this one that you're coming to this morning, the value of any event or webinar is the action that you take after it. So if you come along to a session like this and then you do absolutely nothing with it, if you come along to a mastermind session and do nothing with it, then it was a complete waste of your time and money coming along to that session. So as you will see as we go through the slides, and hopefully the members, as they talk to you in the breakout rooms, will talk to you about what we do in order to create that accountability and the action that you're going to take as a result of being in the meeting. Now, it's not about necessarily quick wins. So there is a movement, if you like, at the moment in the industry where they want to sell you the 7 steps to heaven or the silver bullet to solve all of your problems. And they talk about these things as though they are really easy to implement. And there's a phrase that I very often use around: everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So everybody searches for this holy grail, this quick win, this utopia that doesn't exist. Nobody wants to die. Nobody wants to put the work in order to improve their practice. It's like sticking wings on a bike. And if you stick wings on a bike, it won't make it fly. So it doesn't matter how hard you pedal, you won't be able to get that bike to take off. So masterminding, and in particular, the Accountants Mastermind, for me, is not about the quick, easy wins. Don't get me wrong, there are quick things that you can implement, but it's fundamental stuff. It's about getting underneath the symptoms of your problem and working with the core, the root of the problem, rather than the symptoms of as they are showing. So it's an enjoyable process, don't get me wrong, but it's not a sort of a sticky plaster job. It's something that you need to work on in order to improve your practice. So I have started, let me just add Sega. I started masterminding back in 2003 with these gentlemen. So you'll see there's a Rob Walsh and Matt Donnelly, Nigel Bennett from Hallidays. And we set up a mastermind group off the back of being members of AVN. And what we did is through AVN, we went on various courses, but the level of accountability weren't there. So we created our own mastermind group in order to make sure that we were held accountable for the things that we was doing. And ultimately, this is me chairing one of the meetings at Greenstones, and they're all still happy about that. And the camaraderie, I'm still in regular contact with all of these accountants. The camaraderie, the support, and the conversations that we had, I know was a big part, a massive part of the development of Greenstones, and still is a massive part of that development. So Masterminded created the support and accountability I needed. Now, there are a number of myths about running an accountancy practice and indeed running a small business, one of which is that it's lonely. It has to be a lonely place, or it is a lonely place in that you are the head of the organization, you're the head of the accountancy practice, and you can't talk to your team about the challenges that you've got, because obviously some of those might be about them, or they might be a bit challenging, or they might make you think a little bit differently about what you're doing. So you can't really share with your team. When you go home of an evening and you talk to your partner, they've probably never ran a business or run a practice, so they don't really have any empathy around what it is that you are doing and what you're experiencing. And then when you go to the pub with your mates, or you go out with your family, they again probably never ran a business, never ran an accountancy practice, so they don't really empathize with what it is that you're doing. Now, it doesn't have to be lonely. Masterminding gives you the ability to work with other accountants that are experiencing the same challenges as you. And ultimately, and again, I think the members will share this in the breakout room, as you join the group, as the trust and vulnerability develops, then you're not lonely anymore, because you've got the other 9 members of the mastermind group in order to share your challenges with. So that's the first myth. If I press that, and then we go on to myth 2. Now, if you ignore the elephant in the room, you are sure, lots of people think that if they ignore the elephant in the room, the problem will go away. And one of my favorite questions at the moment is, what problem are you ignoring in the vain hope it will resolve itself? Now, masterminding is, as I've already said, is about getting underneath the surface problems. So you might present a problem around being challenged around social media and being open all the time and contactable all the time. And that's not really the problem. The fundamental problem underneath it might be around your self-worth or self-sacrifice or looking for approval for customers. So the myth is that if you keep ignoring a problem, it will go away. Generally speaking, that's not what happens. It needs to be confronted in a courageous way, and you need to make the courageous decision in order to implement it. And then the last one is, people talk to me about joining the mastermind group, and they'll say things like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not as good as, and then they'll compare against somebody else, perhaps another member that's already in the group. Now, I always share with people that it's not about how good you are, it's about your contribution to the mastermind group. So it doesn't matter about how good you are, how big you are, how small you are, how long you've been in practice. It's about the questions that you ask. It's about your open-mindedness in the group. So everybody, however long they've been in practice, can contribute to the group and receive something from it. Now, as you'll see, there are some things where you'll be able to get more value out of it. If you've been in practice for, say, 3 years and you've got some team members, you will get more value out of the mastermind group. But that's not necessarily a fundamental requirement of contributing to the group. So everybody brings different facets. If you are only just starting out in practice, you might have a social media expertise that the other members haven't got, or a YouTube expertise that the other members haven't got, or you might have Xero or Xavier, some software input that other people haven't got. You might be able to relate to the younger team members better than what the older members of the mastermind were. So everybody is good enough to join a mastermind, and it's no good comparing yourself against other people. It's just a question of what you can contribute. And as I said, at the end of this conversation, you're going to have basically three choices. You can consciously do nothing, and that's just a basic decision. You can decide that masterminding is not for you, and I am going to review that situation in 3, 6, 12 months or whatever it is. I always share again this with the team. The best decision is the right decision. The second best decision is the wrong decision. The worst decision is no decision at all. So if you leave here not having made a decision or wanting to think about it, then that's the worst decision. The second best decision is the wrong decision, and the best decision of all is obviously making the right decision. So whatever you do, consciously make a choice. You can go away and set up your own group, and if you want to do that, then I will gladly support you in the process. However, you need to be aware of the pitfalls of that. Ultimately, if somebody isn't being paid to facilitate the group and to organize it, what happens is that you get in a room, you have a general conversation. At the end of that conversation, people take some action, they say it's wonderful, and then you look to another chair and nobody puts themselves forward in order to chair the next meeting or organize the next meeting. So it ends up with the person that organized that meeting, and then over time that person gets fed up, because although they're contributing and they're getting feedback out of it, they're not contributing, or they're contributing more than the other members. So you could set up your own group, but sometimes unless everybody is committed to that group, they work very well initially and then they fade. So obviously that's a choice. And then the conversation that I really want to have with you today, obviously, is joining one of my mastermind groups, or at least coming along and test driving the group so you can see and feel for yourself the value and the benefit of masterminding. So how does it work? Let me briefly run through. All groups at the moment are virtual. There are 3 groups that are running. There is 2 groups that used to be physical and will go back to physical as soon as we're allowed. And then there's a virtual group that is virtual, obviously, and will remain virtual. The fundamental difference between the two is that the 2 physical groups, they meet for a day every other month, so bi-monthly, and the virtual group meets every month. So the virtual group meets for half a day every month. The physical groups meet every other month for a day. And obviously, when we are actually physical and virtual as opposed to online, the physical groups meet the night before, we have a glass of wine in the bar and chew the cud, etc., etc. Whereas the virtual groups, we can't do that. So we arrive, we do the content, we have the conversations, and then we leave with some action. So I'm open to having a conversation, or when you want to join the groups, we'll have a conversation with you about which one of those 2 scenarios work best. In the members that we've got with us today, Keith is in the virtual group, and the other 4 members are part of the physical groups that are currently virtual. As I say, they're all virtual at the moment. They follow a similar format, so they follow a similar content. We have a review of the actions and we celebrate your success. This is where the accountability comes in. So most courses, webinars, etc., that you go on, you will turn up, you'll write loads of notes, you'll say that you're going to do some actions, and then nobody checks. Within the mastermind groups, those actions are recorded in a piece of software called Coach Accountable. And then at the beginning of the following, let me just press that again. At the beginning of the following month or the following meeting, we go through those actions on Coach Accountable. It looks a bit like this. This is a dummy account. We go through those actions in order to make sure that you are fulfilling and completing those actions that you want. And the latest statistics that I've got with regards to actions completed by the group is that it's 97.5%. So 95.7% of actions set at the end of a mastermind meeting are completed. Yeah, so 97.5%. The other 2.5%, I'm not saying that they're not completed. They just might not have been completed yet and will be completed in the future. So accountability and you taking action off the content that is shared is very, very close to my heart. I find it incredibly frustrating if people turn up and repeatedly say, well, yeah, I was going to do it, but I ain't got round to it. Ultimately, it frustrates me. I was going to use a stronger word then. And you fail to get value out of the group. And in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months time, you turn around and say, Simon, I'm not getting any value out of the group. And it's your fault because the group is rubbish. So you externalize your failure. And over the years, as I say, we've been doing this since 2012. I have asked 5 people, 5 members, full paying members, to leave the group because they weren't implementing actions. It's very, very close to my heart. So 97.5%. So join the group if you want to take action. Don't join the group because you want to be closer to me or part of the group because of the ethos or the ideology of it or whatever it is. Only do it if you want to implement the stuff that you are learning. So after we've gone through the review of the actions, we then look at best practice. That's where the members share ideas between each other, books that they've read, websites that they've seen, courses that they've been on, emails that they've written, resources that other members of the group might find useful. This is particularly, it's one of my favorites. I love a shiny object, a new book or a new website. So that is a transference of knowledge. As I've already said, we have a guest speaker, or occasionally I will deliver some content into the group. All of the speakers are proper professional speakers. They do it for a living. There's no local chap that wants to talk about networking and flog your health and safety advice or whatever it is. They are all proper paid for professional speakers. Just to give you a bit of a feel, we've got Celine here, Nigel Risner's a great chap, Malcolm Smith, who I've already talked to you about, Celine, who talks about wellness, Pete Wilkinson, who's coming back to the groups in a couple of weeks, talks about elite teams and goal setting, and then Luke, who talks about digital media. But they are, as I say, they are all professional speakers that deliver content without any sales pitch. There's no running to the back of the room or anything like that. It's proper content for you to take action on. Next up, we have benchmarking. At this point, I want to share a little story about James. I'm not expecting you to write or read all of this information. James is one of the members that will be in the room. And what people do is they enter their KPIs. We have 7 key KPIs that people benchmark themselves against. And then obviously you take those numbers away and you analyze your numbers. So James was benchmarked. I think it was the first or second time that you went through the process and was horrified at some of the numbers. So he then went through and changed them. And ultimately, the magic numbers that you need to see are the ones that are highlighted there, where taking some actions off the back of the benchmarking, James saved 6% of his turnover and increased his profits by a full 10%. And the magic part of that, obviously, is that it involved no extra work. It didn't involve recruiting customers or doing extra work for those customers. So benchmarking, it's quite a vulnerable thing. It's quite a trusting thing to open yourself up to those exposure numbers, especially if you feel as though they're not very good. But as long as you trust the group and trust me from a confidentiality point of view, then you can only develop by having that knowledge. Let me just let these 2 people in. So that's benchmarking. We then have individual hot seats. And this is where, as I said earlier, where we get underneath the problem. So most masterminding, if you like, they look at brainstorming rather than problem solving. So you rock up and you say you've got a problem, and what they do is they throw loads of solutions at you rather than getting clarity on the problem. So the process, very briefly, is you state your problem, we get clarity on the problem, we then turn that into the problem as understood, so the real problem, and then we provide solutions against it. And I know if you speak to the members, when you go out into the breakout rooms, they'll give you all sorts of stories around people being challenged and understanding around both the problem and their limiting or their own limiting beliefs. And then obviously at the end, we have action planning. In addition to that, we also have a private WhatsApp group. I know many of you are members of the Accountants Mastermind WhatsApp group. Each group has their own individual mastermind group, WhatsApp group, so they can share ideas and get, what should I say, sometimes a more reasoned answer to the problems that they've got, rather than the instant hit of the 10 o'clock glass of wine on the main WhatsApp group. They have buddy calls, and there's an agenda that they can go through to follow the buddy calls if the group so wishes. And again, that increases the vulnerability and the trust. And then finally, I'm conscious of the time, and I want to get you in the rooms talking to Michael and James and Chris and Keith. And the 2 Michaels, you have access to the Greenstone systems. So if there's anything that I've already done, that I've already got, that can help you in your practice development journey, get there quicker, then you can have them. So they're not available. They're not on some vault or other marketing sales pitch, because it just basically, if you stick stuff in a vault or whatever, then there's just a massive, great long list of stuff that people never look at. But if there's something that you need that I have that you feel as though you can get value out of it, I will gladly give that to you. And then finally, before you meet the members, you have access, obviously, to the other members' systems if they are willing to share. And almost certainly they will be willing to share the information, the systems that they've got. And this came to fore really for me at the height of the COVID crisis, as people were writing blogs and doing webinars and doing email updates and all those sort of things. They was all going into the personal, into the private WhatsApp groups, and that information was being shared amongst the community, amongst the members, in order for them to save some time. So let me just check. Keith wants to have a virtual glass of wine the night before. There's an idea, Keith. So let me move you over now into the main session, into the breakout rooms. Excellent. That's everybody back in the room. So I hope you have got any questions that you needed answering by the full members in that session. If not, then pop them in the chat box and I will gladly answer them at the end. I'm also going to share with you now how the full mastermind works and what the next steps are if you would like to continue your journey with us. And I'd just like to say thank you publicly to the two Michaels, James, Chris and Keith, and thank you very much for coming along and sharing today. A round of applause for you. And if you want to disappear now and go and get on with the rest of your lives, then feel free, or alternatively, obviously, you can hang around and answer any questions that we've got as they come up. So let me share this in order to share what else we have got in the conversation today. So you have just met the members, and just to give you a summary of what we have within the full mastermind. Obviously, we have accountability. We have a high sense of community. I focus heavily on clarity and obviously the focus that delivers. It's all about sharing ideas and world-class speakers. We also have the hot seats, the benchmarking, the private WhatsApp group, and there's also a private Facebook group that gets used less than what it used to, because the majority of the stuff there goes in the WhatsApp group. And then we have catch-up calls, individual coaching calls with Mark if you need them, access to the systems, and ultimately access to me as well if you need it. So if you wanted to work with me on a one-to-one basis, depending on how you wanted to do that, how many numbers, how many times a year you wanted to speak with me, you would be looking at an investment of anywhere between £10,000 to £14,000. So the top sort of one-to-one package that I do is basically we meet every other month, so 6 times a year, which is equivalent to the mastermind, the physical mastermind. And if you want to do that, then you're looking at basically £14,000 a year, a bit over £1,200 a month. To join the mastermind groups, it is currently £445 plus the VAT per month. So that's 12 monthly installments over the course of a year at £445 plus VAT. And I know one of the questions that somebody asked within the registration form is there a minimum term or a notice period? The simple answer to that is no, there is no minimum term. So if you come along and you decide you don't like it, you just need to tell me and we stay friends and go our separate ways. There's no notice period. I'm not going to make you come along to meetings that you don't want to come along to. You can join, experience it, and then if you're not getting value, you can leave. Another question that came up in the registration forms was around how long does it take to get value? And I will say to people, I think you really need to be involved for 6 months before you get the vulnerability and the trust in order to see how it properly works. I'm not saying you don't get any value for 6 months by any stretch of the imagination, but once you've been coming along for 6 months, then certainly the value goes up. And 12 months is a good sort of ballpark time scale for most people. So if you're joining, then certainly look to join for 6 months and ultimately 12 months. And most members, once they join, have been in for 3, 4, 5, years plus. So the investment in the mastermind is 445 plus the VAT per month. Now, Nicola, when she joined the group, we had numerous conversations with Nicola around increasing her prices. And as you'll see from this, when she eventually got round to it, she increased her prices by 10%. And her net profits went up by 18% overnight. So again, that's extra fees without doing any work. And I know since Nicola did this and made this decision, then Nicola has done her prices, increased her prices again since then. So just give you a feel of the different things that members can achieve. So this is Michael Hem, who's one of the members that's in the meeting this morning. During the time that Michael has been working with us, and this was up until May of 2020, May 2019, which was when we presented at Accountex. His average fee had increased from £1,375 to £3,426, and his number of clients that he worked with had only gone from 229 to 240. So again, a significant increase in prices for not a significant increase in work. He flipped his debtors round, so he was collecting direct debits of £3,000 a month, and he got that up to £32,000, and his debtor days went down from 95 to 18 days. Now, and then the last one, which is the one that I'm kind of most proud of, because it's something that I wanted to replicate. It's something that I've done within Greenstones and I wanted to replicate within the members. He had 3 team members when he started, and it increased to 6. And one of his team members, one of his most senior team, they started looking after their own portfolio of customers. Now, as I've shared with you, these numbers didn't happen overnight. There wasn't a silver bullet or 7 steps or the magic formula or any keys to success or utopia. There was all action, all things that Michael did, but Michael implemented in order to improve his practice. So that's Nicola and Michael. And then more generally, as I said, we share the benchmarking numbers within the community if you want to. And this is basically a summary of the 12 months numbers, again, up till October of last. Yeah, so over the course of 12 months, the members' team happiness increased by 10.6%, and their customer happiness remained constant at 9 out of 10. Now, if you're not surveying your team and surveying your customers, that's something that I would wholeheartedly recommend. And we've got a webinar coming up in the not too distant future around how to do that and why it's important to do that. And again, on average, the members' average fee increased by 9.4% to £3,133. Team cost to admin. So one of the benchmarks that get talked about a lot within the profession, the old third, but team costs, including admin to turnover, reduced by 1.4% to 52.2%. So you're basically around about half of the fees generated are being spent on team, and there's all sorts of numbers that go behind that, which I'll gladly share. And then extra work orders, this is stuff that you're invoicing over and above compliance, increased by 10.7% to 13% of turnover. So if you're not generating around 13% of your turnover in extra work orders, so add-ons that you're selling in addition to the compliance, then you should be looking at the things that you're doing in order to improve the profitability within your practice. And as I said earlier, this is the conversation that I had with James Sherd when he submitted his figures and then went through the benchmarking process and took action on what it was that he learned. Now, you might be thinking, I don't have enough time. Well, I'm going to share a little resource with you in a minute that you can have access to if you join the mastermind that will help you save time. There are hundreds of things that you're doing that you can stop doing in order to create time to improve your practice. And I guarantee lots of those stuff are surface level problems. They're things, they're shiny objects where you think, oh, that's a really good idea. Let's go and implement that. Or that's a great piece of software. Let's go and do that. Or that's a really interesting webinar. Let's go and watch that webinar. So there are things that you can do, the things that you can cut out in order to save your time. And also there will be things that you can cut out in order to create some money, again, predominantly around software. I bet you've got all sorts of stuff that you're paying on direct debit that if you cut that out, you could create some cash within your business because you've just not got round to doing them. And ultimately, if you have some clarity around what it is that you want to do, what it is that you're going to focus on, then you will create the time and ultimately you will create the money, and you can go in and do your pricing and all the rest of it in order to make sure that effectively the mastermind groups become self-funding. There's no net cost to it because you are creating time and money for yourself to reinvest in your business. Am I too small? I've demonstrated to you, I think earlier, that there's no size requirement. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, you get more value out of the mastermind if you've got team members than if you've not got any team members, because lots of the conversations resolve around team. But we have members of the mastermind that don't have any team members at all, and they take the team member stuff and relate it to their customers. So how could they create engaged customers within the practice? And then, am I too big? Well, for me, the only way that you can be too big is if you have basically more than one decision owner, because I find it really difficult to work with practices that have got more than one decision owner, i.e. partnerships or boards of directors, where somebody comes along, they think, oh, that's a great idea, and then they go back to the business or go back to the practice, and then they have to get it by the other partners before they can implement. It just slows the whole process down, and I just find it very frustrating. So we have got people within the community, within the mastermind, that have more than one decision maker, but generally speaking, they both come along to the meetings and then they implement off the back of those meetings. So you can technically be too big, but the majority of owner managed practices, so we've got 22 team members, and there are members with sort of 20 employees. So that's the sort of ballpark as to where you can be. I have done it and said it all. No doubt you have, and no doubt you've been on all sorts of courses and got all sorts of ideas that you need to implement. For me, the mastermind gives you clarity over what to do first and then holds you accountable for implementing those actions. And then another excuse that lots of people use is that I need to do X first. So I've got all these ideas that I've come up with, all these things that need to be implemented. And as soon as I've got all those implemented, then it's for me. And invariably, I know that will never happen, because there was always something else to do first. And what you're doing is you're kicking the action down the road. You're postponing doing something about it because it feels good to be busy. Busy doing the wrong things is just basically being a busy fool. And the mastermind process will give you clarity over what it is that you should be doing. And then ultimately, me and the members and Mark hold you accountable for doing it. So, as I said, got accountability, high sense of community, clarity and focus on what you're doing, world-class speakers, hot seats, benchmarking, private WhatsApp group, catch-up calls, coaching calls, access to systems, and if you want it, some time management processes and systems that will save you sufficient time in order to be able to come along to the mastermind. I've got a couple of people that want to come in. So the next step for you is to share with me and Mark what it is that you would like to do. So if Mark's just going to put this in the chat box, if you click on that link, it will take you to a survey. And on that survey, it just asks you to stick your name in and then tick one of three boxes. It's the three choices that you've got as a result of coming along here today. The first one is obviously to consciously do nothing. And I am happy with that. That is delightful. I am delighted that you can make a decision and have made a decision to consciously do nothing. At least that's a decision. I don't think it's the right decision necessarily, but at least you've made a decision. The next one is to set up your own group. So you can stick in there that you want to go away and set up your own group. If you want some resources from me, you want 15 minutes of my time to help you set that group up, I will be delighted to share that with you. Obviously, I think my group, our group, is better than what you will create yourself, but any sort of masterminding for me is better than no masterminding at all. And I take the mission to inspire, challenge, and support you and your team to be the very best you want to be, literally. And if that involves not working with me because you feel as though that's better, then I will gladly support you in that process. Or obviously, you can tick the box and ask to come along to a test drive to see whether the group is for you. And if you tick that box, there's a request to say whether you want to do the physical group. So you want to come and meet in the hotel, have a glass of wine and all that sort of thing before the main day when we are allowed. And it's looking like that might be May before we can go physical again. Or alternatively, join the virtual group, which meets every month. So 1 month we have a hot seat meeting and the next month we have a speaker meeting in order for you to save travel time and all that sort of stuff. If you're unsure, just tick one of those boxes and I will have a conversation, or Mark will have a conversation with you about the advantages and disadvantages of each different one in order for you to get a feel for it. And as I said, that URL is in the chat box. So if you just click that for me and go and stick your name in and consciously decide, that it just saves me lots of aggravation of making sure, and Mark, lots of aggravation of making sure whether people have done it or not done it, or whether they want to be having a chat with us or not having a chat with us. It saves lots of sales admin at the end. So that's what you get. I'm delighted to have a conversation with you about the one-to-one stuff, if that's what you think's more suitable for you. And as I said, depending on what you want, somewhere between 10 to 14, whereas the mastermind group is 445 per month plus the VAT. And you can get the results like Nicola did, and like Michael has done, and the benchmarking that James has done, and what the wider community have done from a benchmarking point of view. So just hop over to that URL now, and as Mark has put it in the chat box as well, and complete the little survey. That would be great. And I have 5 minutes left if anybody would like to ask any questions of me. I'm just going to have a flick through what's gone in the chat box in the group. Understand if you work for me at bookkeeping. So if there's a specific question in there, Sharon, then please ask it. I'll gladly have a conversation with you. I think it's around it's just you and you haven't got any post-qualified people working for you. So as I said, we do have members in the group that don't have any team members, and I think it's more difficult for you to get value out of the group. But if you think more laterally around what you do with the information, the likes of Mark Robb, for example, it talks on employee engagement and how you can engage your customers, there is still value in it. Robert, yes, there will be a recording of my bit, not of the breakout rooms, and we'll gladly send those out to you. Pavan, fantastic graphics on your presentation. How do you go about doing it? Is it software? No, it's not software. I have a designer man called Dave. I met Dave many moons ago. Dave is, what should I say? Don't tell him this, but Dave is very good value for money with regards to his design work. So basically, I create the slides and then they go off to Dave. Dave works his magic and then he sends them back, and they come back as JPEGs and they go on the PowerPoint. So we don't have to worry about all the formatting and those sorts of things. If you want an invitation or an invite or an introduction to Dave, then I will gladly give it to you. That's Mark. Alan's asked, where are the physical group meetings held? They are currently held in Peterborough. Both groups are held in Peterborough. I made a decision back when Amy was born and Ben was born not to travel if I didn't have to. And the groups were set up in Peterborough, and all the one-to-one coaching is done in Peterborough. So you would travel to a hotel in Peterborough. We move around and there's different things in different hotels. So they are held in Peterborough. Thank you for answering that for me, Michael. I think we benefit more at a later date. Definitely, Sharon, just consciously make that decision. If you're consciously deciding not to do it, I am happy. At least you've made a decision. Will it help with January, Gary? Only you can help with January, and depending on what it is that you choose to tolerate. If you want to make that a specific focus, Gary, then I will gladly hold you accountable to that. But ultimately, all of the actions, as much as I can beat you up, challenge you, nag you, publicly embarrass you for taking the action, it's not about me. I'm not going to do it for you. You have to want to do it and then go and do it. So yes, Gary, it will help with January, but it's something that you need to take responsibility for rather than me. And then we've got two, Sharon. So I am 1 minute to go. So if anybody's got any other questions, then please pop them in the, I believe I want to do it. Yeah, we all want to do it, Gary. Pop them in the chat box. If not, we can say goodbye. Definitely, please, Mike, you just pop that URL in the chat box for me again, so everybody's got it. If you've not completed that, then please do. It just saves me having a load of admin and reconciling who's on the call and who's not on the call and the like. Just check. No further questions. Just check there's no hands up. No, brilliant. All right, so that just leaves me to say a huge thank you to the two Michaels, Chris, James, who I think has disappeared, and Keith for coming along and sharing their wisdom. It's very much appreciated. And thank you to everybody that's come along to listen about what the mastermind is about and how you can benefit from it, and what the members had to share it. And as I say, if anybody's got any questions, or even if you don't want to pop them in the chat box, just email me or LinkedIn me or WhatsApp me, and I will gladly answer them. So that's it for now. And thank you very much. And I will see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.